Imagine a vast empire, an empire so advanced, so powerful, that its cities shimmered like gold under the sun. A people whose knowledge of the stars rivaled the great astronomers of the Renaissance. A civilization that seemed almost untouchable until suddenly they were gone. The fall of the Aztecs has been told in many ways, but what if I told you that their disappearance wasn't as simple as history books suggest? What if their fate was sealed not just by swords and disease, but by something far more mysterious? Tonight, we begin our journey into the untold story of the Aztecs, a story of betrayal, prophecy, and something that may change the way we see history forever. Long before their tragic downfall, the Aztecs were a force unlike any other. They weren't always the rulers of the land we now call Mexico. In fact, they started as a wandering people looking for a sign from the gods. According to legend, their god Huitzilopochtli told them to search for an eagle perched on a cactus, devouring a snake. When they finally saw it, they knew this was their home. They built Tenochtitlan, a magnificent city of temples, canals, and floating gardens. At its peak, Tenochtitlan was one of the largest cities in the world. Some say it was even more impressive than the cities of Europe at the time. The streets were clean, markets overflowed with goods, and the Aztec warriors were feared across the land. But deep beneath this power, something unsettling lurked, a prophecy that would one day come true. The Aztecs believed history moved in cycles. They recorded stories of previous civilizations that had risen and fallen before them. In their sacred texts, there was a chilling prediction. One day, strangers from across the sea will arrive. They will wear metal skins, wield weapons of thunder, and bring about the end of the empire. To the Aztecs, time was not a straight path. It was a wheel, constantly repeating itself. Had they already seen their fate written in the stars? Strangely, their own ruler, Montezuma II, was deeply troubled by these prophecies. As omens began to appear, mysterious fires, unnatural eclipses, and disturbing visions, fear spread throughout the empire. And then, the strangers arrived. In the year 1519, ships unlike anything the Aztecs had ever seen appeared on the horizon. They were massive, with towering sails, cutting through the waves like floating beasts. The men who stepped off them were pale-skinned, covered in metal, and rode strange creatures with hooves. The Aztecs had never seen horses before. Some believed they were gods. At the head of this group was a man named Hernán Cortés. He wasn't just any explorer, he was a man with a mission, a man who had no idea he was walking straight into a prophecy. Montezuma, fearing the worst, did something that would go down in history as one of the greatest miscalculations ever made. Instead of attacking these newcomers, he welcomed them with gifts. Gold, jewels, food, anything to appease the strangers who fit the very description of the prophecy. Was it kindness, diplomacy, or was Montezuma simply trapped in the belief that he was witnessing the inevitable? Regardless of his reasoning, the decision would soon lead to consequences far beyond his imagination. For a time, there was an uneasy peace. The Spanish walked the streets of Tenochtitlan, marveling at its wonders. Montezuma treated them as honored guests, but the people of the city were growing restless. Why were these outsiders being allowed to roam free? Why did their presence feel like a dark cloud over the empire? Meanwhile, Cortés had his own plan in motion. He wasn't here just to visit, he was here to conquer. But he knew that brute force alone wouldn't be enough. So, he waited, he studied. He looked for weaknesses, and soon he found them. The Aztecs were mighty, but they had enemies, many of them. Neighboring tribes who had suffered under their rule, people who might be willing to turn against them if given the right push, and just like that, the foundation of the empire began to crack. As night fell over Tenochtitlan, few could have imagined that the world they knew was about to change forever. Prophecies were unfolding. Alliances were being formed in the shadows, and a sickness that no one had ever seen before, was just beginning to spread. The end was near, but it wouldn't happen in the way most people think. What really caused the Aztecs to vanish? Was it war, disease, or something far more shocking? We will explore the moment the tide turned, the secret betrayals, the battles, and the invisible force that struck the empire at its core. The mighty city of Tenochtitlan stood as a marvel of the ancient world. Its grand temples touched the sky, its markets bustled with life, and its people carried on, unaware that their empire was living on borrowed time. But something was coming. A storm was gathering, one made not just of swords and warriors, but of whispers, betrayals, and something far more insidious. We saw the arrival of the Spanish, the fateful meeting between Montezuma and Cortés, and the eerie fulfillment of ancient prophecies. But tonight, we dive deeper into the cracks forming beneath the empire's surface, because what happened next would shake the Aztecs to their core. For months, the Spanish lived within Tenochtitlan as uneasy guests. Montezuma, still believing they could be gods or part of a divine plan, continued to offer them hospitality. But his own people were growing impatient. Why were these outsiders still here? Why did Montezuma seem afraid? Cortés, on the other hand, had learned everything he needed to know. He had mapped the city in his mind, studied its defenses, and most importantly, he had found allies. The Aztecs were feared across the land, ruling over smaller tribes with an iron grip. Many of these people despised them and saw Cortés as an opportunity. Slowly, the Spanish leader began forging alliances. The Tlaxcalans, bitter enemies of the Aztecs, saw in him a chance for revenge. They brought warriors, knowledge, and secrets that Cortés would use to dismantle the empire from within. Meanwhile, in the heart of Tenochtitlan, tensions were rising. Then came the moment that changed everything. In the spring of 1520, the Aztecs were preparing for the festival of Tlaxcalan, a sacred celebration dedicated to their god Quetzalcoatl. The people gathered in the city's great temple, adorned in feathers and gold, chanting and dancing to honor their gods. But the Spanish saw something else, an opportunity. With Cortés temporarily away dealing with a political dispute, his second-in-command, Pedro de Alvarado, was left in charge. And Alvarado was afraid. He feared an uprising, and whether out of paranoia or cruelty, he made a horrifying decision. As the Aztec warriors celebrated, unarmed and unsuspecting, the Spanish blocked the exits. Then, with steel and gunpowder, they attacked. The festival turned into a massacre. Blood ran down the temple steps. Drums once used for celebration now beat in horror as people screamed for mercy. By the time it was over, hundreds of Aztec nobles, priests, and warriors lay dead. The Aztecs had been patient. They had tolerated these outsiders, but now their patience was gone. News of the massacre spread like wildfire. The people, once divided over Montezuma's decisions, now had one common goal: revenge. The streets of Tenochtitlan filled with warriors. Thousands surrounded the Spanish compound, cutting off supplies and escape routes. What was once uneasy hospitality had now become a full-scale siege. The Spanish, though armed with steel and guns, were vastly outnumbered. Each day, they grew weaker. Each night, the sounds of war drums echoed through the city, signaling their impending doom. Then came the most tragic moment of all, the fall of Montezuma II. Desperate to end the chaos, Cortés convinced Montezuma to step onto the palace balcony and address his people. He pleaded for peace, but the people no longer saw a ruler. They saw a traitor. Rocks and spears flew through the air, striking Montezuma down. Some say he was killed by his own people. Others claim the Spanish murdered him when they realized he was no longer useful. Either way, the last great ruler of the Aztecs was dead, and the Spanish had only one choice left: run. On the night of June 30th, 1520, under the cover of darkness and rain, the Spanish made their desperate escape. They packed as much gold as they could carry and attempted to sneak out across the causeways that connected Tenochtitlan to the mainland. But the Aztecs were waiting. The warriors attacked from all sides. Canoes filled the lake, arrows rained down, and the once mighty Spanish were now fleeing for their lives. Men fell into the water, drowning under the weight of stolen gold. Horses and soldiers were dragged into the darkness. By the time the survivors reached safety, they had lost nearly half their forces. It was a crushing defeat, but the Spanish were not finished. In the aftermath, the Aztecs celebrated their victory. They had driven out the invaders, proven their strength, and reclaimed their city. But something invisible had already taken hold. Something no warrior could fight. Smallpox. The disease had arrived with the Spanish, but it didn't affect them the way it affected the Aztecs. This was a sickness the empire had never seen before. It spread silently, jumping from person to person, wiping out entire families in days. The symptoms were terrifying: high fevers, blistering skin, and unbearable pain. Priests prayed to the gods, but the gods were silent. Warriors who had once stood fearless on the battlefield now fell helpless in their homes. Within months, the city was unrecognizable. The streets were quiet, filled with the sick and the dead. The mighty empire that had driven out the Spanish was now crumbling from within. And Cortés knew it. He was watching, waiting, and soon he would return to finish what he had started. The Spanish fled, but they would come back. The Aztecs won the battle, but they were losing the war against something they could not see. The fall of Tenochtitlan was inevitable, but what really happened in those final days? Was it just war and disease that brought the Aztecs down? Or was there something even more shocking behind their disappearance? We uncover the final days of the empire, the betrayal that sealed their fate, the eerie events leading up to their last stand, and the truth behind the lost city that some say still haunts the land today. In the wake of the destruction that had befallen Tenochtitlan, it was clear to the Aztecs that they were no longer invincible. They had fought back the Spanish, but in the shadow of smallpox, starvation, and betrayal, they were weakening. And yet, as the empire crumbled, they still had one final hope. Montezuma was gone. His successor, Quetzalcoatl, would be the one to lead them in their most desperate hours. But even he could not have known the fate that awaited. We saw the devastation caused by the massacre, the betrayal, and the arrival of the disease that ravaged the city. Tonight, we uncover the last stand of the Aztecs, the battle for their very survival, and the final moments that sealed the empire's fate. After Montezuma's death, Quetzalcoatl took the throne. He was a strong leader, one who had been raised in the harshest conditions, one who had fought fiercely for his people. He would not bow to the invaders like Montezuma had. He knew the stakes. His first order of business was to rally the Aztec warriors. They had been shattered by Montezuma's death, but Quetzalcoatl gave them hope. He promised to push the Spanish out, to reclaim the honor of their people. But time was not on their side. As Quetzalcoatl led his forces against the invaders, the unseen enemy of smallpox continued to spread. It was wiping out entire families, weakening the very heart of the empire. The warriors fought with everything they had, but how could they defend against an invisible enemy? Still, Quetzalcoatl refused to surrender. He led his people with determination. Even as the streets grew quieter, the numbers dwindled. For the Aztecs, this was more than just a fight for their city. It was a fight for their identity. In the fall of 1520, after the Night of Sorrows, Cortés began gathering reinforcements. He knew that the Aztecs, despite their warriors' bravery, were beginning to crumble. The disease was wreaking havoc, and the supply lines were cut. But Cortés had one advantage. The Aztec city of Tenochtitlan was an island, surrounded by lakes. The siege would be a long, grueling process. To weaken the city, Cortés began a relentless assault. The causeways, which connected the island city to the mainland, were heavily guarded. Cortés would have to seize them in order to block any attempt at escape or reinforcements. But the Aztecs were ready. Every day, the Spanish soldiers faced waves of Aztec warriors, each determined to protect their home. And though the Spanish had superior weaponry, the Aztecs had the advantage of terrain. They knew their city better than anyone. But despite their bravery, the Aztecs could not fight a war of attrition. Cortés began tightening the noose. The once thriving marketplaces fell silent. Families hid inside their homes, starving as the Spanish cut off all supplies. It was only a matter of time before the inevitable would come. Quetzalcoatl, the new emperor, knew his time was running out. His people were dying from disease, their warriors were weary, and the Spanish were slowly but surely advancing. But he made one final push, a desperate last stand against the invaders. On the night of June 30th, 1521, Quetzalcoatl led his warriors into the heart of the Spanish camp. They fought tooth and nail, pushing Cortés's men back for a time. But the Aztecs, already weakened by disease and hunger, could not sustain the onslaught. Quetzalcoatl, like many of his warriors, was struck down by the invisible plague that had been ravaging the city. But it wasn't just the Spanish weapons that killed him, it was smallpox. For the Aztecs, the final blow had come from within. The disease had spread so rapidly, even their strongest leaders could not escape it. In a matter of months, the emperor who had led them with strength and courage was dead. As August 13, 1521 arrived, the siege was at its breaking point. The Spanish had suffered heavy losses, but they had worn the Aztecs down. The once vibrant city of Tenochtitlan was now a shadow of its former self. The people were sick, starving, and demoralized. The warriors who had once been feared across the land were now too few to defend the city properly. The causeways were breached, and the Spanish, with their native allies, pushed into the city. The battle was fierce, but it was clear that the Aztecs could not win. By the end of the day, Tenochtitlan had fallen. The Spanish had taken control of the city, and the mighty empire of the Aztecs was no more. But even in defeat, the Aztecs left a mark on the world that would never fade. Their temples, their knowledge, their art, and their legacy would endure long after their civilization had crumbled. The survivors of Tenochtitlan would eventually scatter, and many of them would later play pivotal roles in the history of Mexico and beyond. So, what really happened to the Aztecs? Was it only war and disease that led to their downfall? Or was something more insidious at work? In truth, it wasn't just the Spanish weapons or the invisible plague that destroyed the Aztecs. The profound isolation that came with living in a city, built on an island, had created vulnerabilities no one could predict. When Cortés returned, he came with a vast army, not just of Spanish soldiers, but with indigenous allies who had long resented the Aztecs. The empire had become too arrogant, too confident in its power, and had forgotten that no civilization, no matter how great, is invincible. Yet, there's something haunting about the fall of Tenochtitlan. Could it have been avoided? Did the prophecy, the one warning of the coming of strangers, really predict the end? Perhaps. The mysterious nature of the Aztec disappearance raises questions that we still can't answer today. Did the gods abandon them? Was the empire doomed by fate? Or was it something more? We will explore the final shocking details about the aftermath, the treasures of Tenochtitlan, the secrets of the Aztec calendar, and the chilling mystery of what lies buried beneath the ruins of the ancient city. Tenochtitlan, the mighty heart of the Aztec Empire, lay in ruins. The grand temples were burned, the palaces destroyed, and the people scattered. What was once a bustling city, rich in culture and power, was now a shadow of its former self. But even as the Spanish celebrated their victory, something remained beneath the surface, secrets that could change everything we know about the fall of the Aztecs. We witnessed the tragic final days of the Aztec Empire, Quetzalcoatl's last stand, the devastating siege, and the fall of Tenochtitlan. But tonight, we will go deeper. What happened to the treasures of Tenochtitlan? What secrets did the Aztecs leave behind, hidden beneath the rubble? And most intriguingly, What do the ancient remnants of their empire reveal about their true fate? When the Spanish took the city in 1521, they found themselves surrounded by unimaginable wealth. Tenochtitlan was more than just a city. It was a treasure trove. The Aztecs had hoarded gold, jewels, and artifacts for centuries, offering them to the gods in elaborate rituals. These treasures were believed to be sacred, symbols of divine power. But when Cortés and his men stormed the city, their eyes were fixed on one thing. They raided the temples, the royal palaces, and the sacred shrines, looting everything in sight. The Aztecs had built their empire on the foundation of riches and rituals, but the Spanish took what they thought would bring them power. One of the most famous stories that came out of this time was the search for Moctezuma's treasure, the legendary hoard of gold said to be hidden somewhere in the palace. After the fall of Tenochtitlan, rumors swirled that Cortés and his men had unearthed a massive stash, enough to make them incredibly wealthy, but to this day no one has ever found it. So where did the treasure go? Some historians believe it was deliberately hidden by the Aztecs before the Spanish arrived. Others argue that the treasure was never as vast as it was made out to be, and much of it was taken during the initial sack of the city. What's clear is that the treasure that once symbolized the wealth and power of the Aztec Empire has disappeared into the sands of time. Yet the mystery of the missing treasure is only part of the puzzle. There is a deeper secret hidden in the ruins, a secret that could reveal something far more profound. Beyond gold and riches, the Aztecs left us something far more mysterious, a calendar that holds the key to their understanding of time, fate, and the cosmos. The Aztec calendar stone, also known as the sunstone, is one of the most remarkable artifacts to come out of their civilization. This massive stone, found in the heart of Mexico City after the fall of Tenochtitlan, is intricately carved with symbols and patterns that seem to chart the very course of time. The calendar is not just a tool for keeping track of days, it's a cosmic map. Its central image depicts the face of Tenochtitlan, the sun god, surrounded by the 4 previous ages of the world. According to Aztec belief, the universe was created in cycles, with each era ending in destruction. The last cycle was known as the 5th sun, and it was said to be in danger of ending as well. What's fascinating is that the Aztecs believed that the world would eventually be destroyed, again and again, by one of the elements: earthquakes, storms, famine, and even floods. Could this prophecy have been the very thing that shaped their understanding of their fall? Some scholars believe that the arrival of the Spanish was a pivotal moment, seen by the Aztecs as the beginning of the end of the 5th sun. The Spanish represented a great cosmic disturbance, a force that was beyond their understanding, but also part of their calendar's ominous predictions. Was the fall of the Aztecs truly predestined? Did they believe deep down that they were witnessing the fulfillment of their own prophecy? While Cortés and his men celebrated their victory, they could not know the extent of what they had destroyed. The Aztec cities, with their vast systems of canals, their towering temples, and their remarkable architecture, were far more advanced than the Spanish had anticipated. Even today, archaeologists are still uncovering hidden parts of the empire, and there's much that remains buried beneath the earth. In the years since the conquest, explorers have unearthed countless artifacts from the ruins of Tenochtitlan, many of which remain in the vaults of museums or are kept secret by governments and collectors. Yet, despite these discoveries, there is a sense that the true heart of Tenochtitlan is still hidden somewhere, waiting to be found. What could be buried beneath the city's streets? What knowledge, what artifacts, and perhaps even what prophecies did the Aztecs leave behind? Could the lost treasures be connected to these hidden messages? And if so, what do they reveal about the true fate of the Aztec civilization? Though the Aztec Empire was destroyed, its legacy has not been forgotten. Today, Mexico City stands on the very spot where Tenochtitlan once lay. Beneath the modern city, the ruins of the Aztec capital still rest, awaiting discovery. But some say the Aztecs never truly left. Their spirit, their culture, their art, their beliefs continues to shape the people and culture of Mexico. And perhaps even more intriguingly, there are whispers of something deeper, something supernatural. Some believe that the ruins of Tenochtitlan still hold secrets and that the spirits of the past linger in the shadows, waiting to reveal their truths to those who are willing to listen. Could the Aztecs have left behind something beyond gold, beyond knowledge, something that could explain the true nature of their fall? In the heart of Mexico City, there are still those who claim to hear the whispers of the past or catch glimpses of strange symbols in the ruins. Could the Aztec prophecy, the one that spoke of destruction and rebirth, be more than just a myth? Could it be a warning for the future? As we uncover the hidden truths of the Aztec Empire, it becomes clear that the end of their civilization was not a simple story of conquest and disease. The fall of Tenochtitlan holds deeper meanings, wrapped in prophecies, mysteries, and lost treasures. And as we look toward the ruins beneath the modern world, we are reminded that history is never truly gone. It lingers, hidden in the stones and in the whispers of those who were there. What secrets did the Aztecs leave behind? What are we still waiting to uncover? And more importantly, what is the real legacy of their rise and fall? We will explore the final whispers of the Aztec Empire, the unanswered questions, the lost knowledge, and the myths that still surround their disappearance. The fall of Tenochtitlan was not just the end of a city, it was the end of an empire that had stood for centuries. The Aztecs, whose civilization had reached heights of power, art, and intellectual achievement, vanished seemingly overnight. But their disappearance was not as straightforward as it may seem. We explored the hidden treasures and the ancient knowledge that still lies beneath Mexico City. We uncovered the secrets of the Aztec calendar and the mysteries surrounding their beliefs, hinting that their fall may have been written in the stars, or perhaps, as some suggest, in their prophecies. But tonight, we take a step further into the unknown. We will uncover the lost knowledge of the Aztecs, what they knew, what they taught, and how that knowledge may have been erased, hidden, or lost. We will also delve into the mysterious prophecies that surrounded their empire. Did they foresee their own downfall? Was their disappearance truly a fate they could not escape? Prepare to uncover the final whispers of the Aztecs, the part of their legacy that still lingers in the shadows. The Aztecs were not just warriors and builders, they were intellectuals, astronomers, mathematicians, and philosophers. Their knowledge of the heavens, agriculture, and medicine was far ahead of their time. One of the most fascinating aspects of Aztec society was their education system. From a young age, children were taught not just to fight, but to read the stars, to understand the cycles of the earth, and to grasp the deeper mysteries of life. The Tepecali, the common schools, taught practical skills, while the comic, the schools for the elite, taught the arts of war, religion, and advanced sciences. The Aztecs' knowledge of the stars and timekeeping was unparalleled. Their 12-month calendar was divided into 20-day periods, and it was intricately tied to the cycles of the sun, the moon, and the planet Venus. But they didn't just track time for agriculture, they tracked time for everything. The movements of the heavens were believed to influence human events. And in the shadow of this great knowledge, the Aztecs prepared for everything, from wars to religious ceremonies. But much of this knowledge was lost after the fall of Tenochtitlan. The Spanish conquerors were not just interested in gold and land, they were determined to erase the Aztec religion, their gods, and their worldview. Many books, codices, and sacred texts were burned, and temples were destroyed. The great knowledge the Aztecs had accumulated over centuries was swept away in the wake of the conquest. Some believe that certain knowledge survived, hidden deep within the earth, or kept secret by those who managed to escape the destruction. Among the countless stories surrounding the Aztecs, one of the most compelling is their prophecy. It's said that the Aztecs believed their civilization would end in fire and water. The end of the world was an event that was meant to occur at the end of the fifth sun, which they believed was the current era. According to Aztec prophecy, when the gods had finished their work, the fifth sun would come to an end in a cataclysm. Each previous sun had been destroyed in a great catastrophe: earthquakes, floods, jaguars, and wind. The Aztecs believed their current sun, the fifth sun, was destined to end in water. But how did the arrival of the Spanish fit into this prophecy? Many Aztec historians and scholars speculate that the arrival of the conquistadors was seen as a fulfillment of the prophecy. Their ships, their armor, and their strange foreign ways were perceived as a sign that the gods had arrived. Some believed that the Spanish were the gods returning, perhaps the Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent god, who was prophesied to return and bring about a new age. This belief was deeply ingrained in Aztec society. The very notion that their end could be foretold by the gods created a sense of destiny around the Spanish arrival. When Cortés and his men marched into Tenochtitlan, the Aztecs were at once terrified and awed. Could the Spanish have been the fulfillment of a prophecy, or was the fall of Tenochtitlan simply the result of human arrogance, disease, and war? While the Spanish played a direct role in the downfall of the Aztecs, it was the invisible enemy, disease, that truly sealed their fate. Smallpox, brought by the Europeans, had a devastating impact. The Aztecs had no immunity to the diseases brought by the foreigners. The disease spread like wildfire, killing thousands, including Quetzalcoatl, the Aztec emperor. Entire families were wiped out, and the once thriving population of Tenochtitlan was decimated. It is said that up to 90% of the population of the Valley of Mexico was wiped out by disease. The Spanish had superior weaponry, but it was disease that made the greatest impact. The collapse of the Aztec Empire wasn't just a result of military defeat, it was the result of a biological catastrophe. The Aztecs were unable to withstand the foreign diseases, and as their numbers dwindled, their empire began to crumble. It is one of the great tragedies of history that the Aztecs were caught in this collision of worlds, unable to stop the disease that ravaged their population. Even though the Aztec Empire is no more, their legacy still lingers. The ancient city of Tenochtitlan is now buried beneath the bustling streets of Mexico City, but the whispers of the Aztecs can still be heard. Some say the spirits of the Aztecs haunt the ruins, waiting for the right moment to reveal their secrets. These spirits, they say, still guard the lost knowledge of the ancient empire. In the modern world, there are still mysterious sightings, strange phenomena, and unexplained occurrences near the ruins of Tenochtitlan. Could it be that the Aztec gods, those powerful beings who once ruled over the empire, still have a presence in the world today? Or could there be a deeper, more profound mystery hidden in the ancient stones waiting to be discovered? The answers may lie in the hidden codices, the lost scrolls that survived the conquest, or in the stones of Tenochtitlan themselves. Could the ancient prophecy still hold significance for the future of the world? The story of the Aztecs is one of great triumph and tragic loss. They were an empire that rose to unparalleled heights of culture, art, and knowledge. Yet, despite their great wisdom, they could not escape their fate, a fate foretold in prophecies, a fate sealed by disease and war. But even in their fall, the Aztecs left us with a rich legacy, one that continues to shape our world today. Their knowledge, their beliefs, and their culture have endured. And as we reflect on their final days, we are reminded that history is never truly gone. It lingers, waiting to be uncovered, to be understood, and to teach us lessons about the past and the future. We will explore the final, unresolved mysteries surrounding the Aztec Empire, the hidden truths that still challenge our understanding of history, and the unanswered questions that linger even today. The Aztec Empire, one of the most powerful and sophisticated civilizations in the Americas, rose to great heights, only to fall swiftly and tragically at the hands of foreign invaders. For centuries, historians have tried to piece together the story of their disappearance. The rise and fall of Tenochtitlan have been examined from every angle, and yet, despite the wealth of knowledge we have uncovered, there are still mysteries that remain unsolved. We explored the lost knowledge of the Aztecs, the role of prophecy, and how disease played a devastating role in the empire's collapse. But tonight we delve into the final unanswered questions, the lingering mysteries that have eluded historians, archaeologists, and scholars for centuries. Was the fall of the Aztecs truly inevitable, or did they stand a chance against the Spanish invaders? What other forces, beyond disease and warfare, might have contributed to the empire's rapid disintegration? And perhaps most intriguingly, are there still secrets, hidden truths beneath the ruins of Tenochtitlan that could rewrite the history of the Aztecs? Prepare yourself, for tonight we explore the final whispers of the Aztec Empire, the unsolved riddles, the forgotten stories, and the ancient secrets that still beckon to be discovered. One of the most captivating aspects of the Aztec Empire's collapse is the tale of the return of Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent god. According to Aztec prophecy, Quetzalcoatl was destined to return at the end of the fifth sun, bringing about a new age. The arrival of the Spanish, led by Hernán Cortés, would ultimately fulfill this prophecy, or so the Aztecs believed. Some historians suggest that the Aztecs, struck by the uncanny appearance of the Spanish, their armor, their ships, their strange customs, might have interpreted these men as the long-awaited return of Quetzalcoatl. This belief was likely fueled by coincidence. The year the Spanish arrived in the Valley of Mexico, 1519, coincided with the exact year prophesied for Quetzalcoatl's return. But this raises a fascinating question. Was this belief in Quetzalcoatl's return truly the catalyst for the Aztecs' downfall? Could their fascination with the Spanish as divine beings have made them hesitate, allowing the invaders to exploit the situation? Or, as some suggest, was this simply a tragic misunderstanding, a misinterpretation of fate that led the Aztecs to fall? In truth, we may never know the full extent to which religious beliefs influenced the Aztecs' reaction to the Spanish. But one thing is clear, the legend of Quetzalcoatl's return continues to echo through history, a tale of cosmic proportions that was perhaps never meant to be understood by those who lived it. Another question that has puzzled historians for centuries is the mysterious death of Moctezuma II, the Aztec emperor who ruled at the time of the Spanish invasion. His death is a pivotal moment in the history of the Aztec Empire, yet the exact cause remains uncertain. Some accounts suggest that Moctezuma was killed by the Spanish, either during the siege of Tenochtitlan or after being taken prisoner. Others believe that he died as a result of abuse at the hands of his own people, who had grown disillusioned with his leadership after he welcomed the Spanish into their city. What makes Moctezuma's death even more puzzling is the fact that, according to some accounts, he was physically unharmed when he passed away. Was his death a result of physical violence? Or was it perhaps a death of spirit, a ruler so broken by his failure to protect his people that he gave up on life itself? The mystery surrounding Moctezuma's death remains one of the most haunting aspects of the Aztec fall. Was he simply a victim of his own misjudgment, or did something more supernatural, something linked to the gods, play a role in his untimely end? As we discussed in previous parts, much of the Aztecs' written knowledge, especially their sacred codices, was destroyed in the aftermath of the Spanish conquest. The burning of these codices was an attempt to erase the culture, the religion, and the very soul of the Aztec people. Yet, despite this tragic loss, some codices survived, and a few have been preserved in museums and collections around the world. These surviving documents offer incredible insight into the Aztec worldview, depicting their gods, rituals, and history in vivid detail. But for the most part, what was lost may be even more significant than what remains. What did these codices contain? Could they have offered a deeper understanding of Aztec philosophy, science, and medicine? And could they have included prophecies or wisdom that, if preserved, might have changed the course of history? There are whispers that secret codices, perhaps hidden away by the last remaining Aztecs or lost to time, still exist, waiting to be uncovered. Could there be a piece of lost knowledge that, if found, could shine new light on the mysteries of the Aztec Empire? While the physical ruins of Tenochtitlan have been buried beneath the sprawling city of Mexico City, some believe that the spirits of the Aztecs still haunt the area. Could the gods, those powerful deities that once ruled the lives of the Aztecs, still linger in the shadows of their lost city? Throughout history, there have been accounts of strange phenomena and unexplained occurrences in the area surrounding the ruins. Some locals report hearing the sound of drums or chanting late at night, while others claim to have seen visions of Aztec warriors or gods. Could these be the echoes of a civilization that refuses to be forgotten? Or is there something deeper at play, some mystical force that links the past with the present? Perhaps the greatest mystery of all is whether the Aztec gods, Quetzalcoatl, Huitzilopochtli, Tezcatlipoca, and others, still hold sway over the land. Their legacy has endured through centuries of conquest and colonization, and some believe that their power remains hidden beneath the streets of Mexico City, waiting to be discovered once more. The fall of the Aztec Empire was tragic, swift, and devastating. But even in their destruction, the Aztecs left behind a legacy that continues to inspire, mystify, and challenge us. From the incredible achievements in science and astronomy to the enduring mysteries of their spiritual beliefs and prophecies, the Aztecs remain an enigma. Perhaps, as we look at the remains of Tenochtitlan and the fragments of their knowledge, we are reminded of the impermanence of civilization, that no matter how powerful a culture may become, it can be swept away in an instant. Yet, like the whispers of the past, the Aztecs refuse to disappear entirely. They live on in the stories we tell, in the knowledge we uncover, and in the mysteries we continue to chase. As we close this chapter on the Aztec Empire, we must ask ourselves, what lessons can we learn from their rise and fall? What truths about human nature, fate, and destiny are hidden in the ruins of Tenochtitlan? The answers may never be fully revealed, but the search for understanding will continue. And in that search, we honor the memory of the Aztecs, a civilization that, despite its fall, will never be forgotten. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed the content, then please don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.